stupid icebreaker questions.
Let's do it. Love it.
Nesquik or Yoo-hoo?
What?
Nesquik or Yoo-hoo?
Nesquik or Yoo-hoo?
Nesquik.
It used to be Yoo-hoo. I don't even remember I had that there. It used to be Yoo-hoo, and then one day I got a Yoo-hoo when I was a kid from a gas station, and it had kind of all this sediment had collected at the bottom, and I think it had soured a little too. And
it ruined Yoo-hoos
It ruined me for Yoo-hoo. I took one sip and it was like, why? So now Nesquik.
And with books and all that nowadays, paperback or e-reader, Kindle, Nook, whatever the version would be?
Hardback, all the way.
I kind of have to agree with that. Like, I've done the e-reader thing before on the iPad, but it's just not the same as holding the physical book in your hand.
I like holding the book. I do too. But I have read a few books on like iBooks on the e-reader kind of thing, and it's fine. But I'm also totally one of those person who I'm like $10 for the paperback or $40 for the special hardback edition. Need that for no real reason. I like my hardbacks.
So there's something about putting them on the shelf.
Yeah.
Being like, I finished that.
And now I'm not going to touch it ever again.
Touch it again.
But
We got an entire shelf of that.
yeah.
I got the ones I'm waiting to read.
Yeah, the waiting to read shelf, same here.
3 shelves of that.
I got a
Yeah.
bookcase.
Never ends.
I guess one last one is for Marisha. Since you host a lot for the Superpower Beatdown.
Yes.
Is there any particular fight that you are waiting to be the next battle?
Oh, great question. I've been waiting for a Black Widow fight for quite some time. We also talked, it was getting tossed around for a little bit, and it hasn't been done because the green screen and special effects would be so intense, and that show is already a pretty After Effects heavy show. But we talked about doing, I think we were talking about doing the Phoenix versus like Zatanna or something like that. We were trying to do like a magical, floaty, levitating girls fighting episode, and I really I just want to see a Phoenix episode. So we'll see. But everyone's like, well, Phoenix would take so much After Effects. And I'm like, yeah, but
As much as I love Zatanna,
So?
that would be a really fast fight.
yeah. Yeah. It might not have been Zatanna who we were talking about, but I don't remember. I don't know.
Yeah.
But Phoenix. I want to see Phoenix.
I want to see Thanos versus Darkseid.
Thanos versus
Darkseid
Darkseid.
would be
That's
epic.
pretty intense.
You want to talk
yeah.
about After Effects heavy?
Yeah.
Prosthetic heavy, and oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good question.
Good question.
As a writer, director, everything in between, and me being an author, I know about this one, so Will. How do you deal with writer's block?
Stepping away. I'm not a person that can push through it. Like just sitting there and trying to force yourself to bash your head through a brick wall is and for some people that's how they can break through. For me, that's never been a technique that functions. So I have to just step away, get myself to an environment that is completely disconnected from that. And sometimes the inspiration comes on its own. Sometimes something else will trigger me to have some inspiration in a different direction. But yeah, for me, the key is to not try to break through the block. I give myself up to the idea that it'll eventually find me. It's the only way it ever works for me.
I have a similar technique. I'm also someone who likes to step away and let it breathe for a little bit. And I also tend to have several projects that I'm working and writing on at a time. So sometimes if I hit a writer's block on one, I'll just be like, well, let's go jump to the other one and work on that for a little bit. And generally, hot showers, great for getting ideas. I don't know why. I get a lot of good ideas in the showers.
It's a neutral space.
It is a neutral space. It's nice and white.
It's the closest thing we have to like the Matrix White Room.
Kind of, yeah.
You know?
But yeah, I like to step back a little bit, and then if I have serious writer's block where I'm like, I don't even know what to do next, then I'll start trying to I'll do a Google image search of like just hot words that I think might help trigger, and look at art or go to like an art gallery even. And sometimes those things, I like seeing the art in a different medium to kind of fuel the writing. in a weird way. And a lot of times when I even start a writing project, I'll start an image folder and just collect images, just anything that, maybe it's that horse. I don't know. Maybe for some reason that horse just speaks to me. And I'll just and if I find an image just randomly, I'll put it in a folder. And then if I ever hit that writer's block or need further information, I can always go back to that folder of images I've collected and kind of skim through, and it kind of helps.
Yeah, Jim Butcher and Dean Koontz are mine. I've got to get, okay, I write sci-fi. Nope, time to go to that.
Gonna jump. Yep.
Yeah.
Time to jump. Yeah, but it's never good to force it, because then you just start writing bad stuff. If you force the writer's block, you're like, this is crap. Ah.
Yeah, you're deleting it all. Being like, oh, it's time.
Do you ever go back and reread it and think to yourself, did I really write that?
Yeah, I do it in
Gets
good
that
ways
moment
and bad
of,
ways.
That sounds either awesome or that sounds horrible. And you're
Yes.
More the latter for me.
Yeah, more than the latter.
More like, I'll finish it like, oh, I'm done. Ugh.
This is terrible. Yeah.
like, yeah, where's the whiteout?
Well, no, I've had projects where I've written a bunch of whether it be a script or a story or even even in schools, reports, and then everything would end up being lost or deleted. And they'd be like, oh, I have to write it again. And then I'll go back and write it again, but as I'm writing it again, it comes out so much better the second time, because the first time you go through, inevitably either the idea isn't quite strengthened enough, you've had enough time to digest the entire project or the entire idea as a whole, that when you go back a second time, you have a better formulated attack at the story.
Yeah, it tends to be more streamlined.
I started off with that, unfortunately, through blogging. And I started writing through blogging, and then I got so many likes on it in such a short amount of time, I was like, okay, this has got to be a book then, because that's just wrong. It's like, okay, I'll just do this. And what ended up happening was, yeah, I wrote it, and then I reread it. What was I thinking?
Yeah.
And you see the progression, because you go back to the blogging and you're like, well, this sounds great. What happened? And you start finding out that it's an evolutionary process of your writing. Actually, the more you do it, the more it progresses. And
It's like a skill almost.
oh,
Crazy.
Yeah. Where did this come from? Yeah. In your careers, the worst voice acting blunder you've ever experienced or seen?
Experienced or seen?
Well, I mean, to get a little, I guess, personal here, there's always that terrible experience where you're in the booth alone for a long time, and you find yourself, based on what you have for breakfast, feeling a little gassy. And you're like, well, it's very sensitive in the room, and the microphone picks up all sound, so you just kind of keep everything in check for the entire session. And then the session's finally finished, your 4 hours are done, and you're like, okay, I can finally let the tension go. And that's when the door opens and the next actor is waiting there, and they're a friend of yours about to go, and you're like, oh, no, like, do you tell them at that point? They're gonna know. They're not gonna not know. And you either own up to it, or they just stop contacting you, or they never find the body. You can go many different ways. That's a pretty big blunder. Your turn.
I can't top that. That's good. That's your answer.
Just so you know, me and Kyle had that conversation. Yeah, it's just like that.
That is
So
the.
you're not alone, Matt.
Because it's terrible, because especially if there's a time gap between, it
It
ripens.
is a time gap, and you get this longer in it.
It ripens. It seeps into the foam. Anyway, next question.
Seeps into the
In
phone.
your careers, when you, and aside from just anime, name some sort of instance you actually related to a little too much in the line of you started actually feeling this hurt or this experience.
Well, I think I speak for both of us in this regard. As an actor, you draw, at least for most techniques, and what a lot of us are trained on, you draw your performance from a place of honesty within that character. Even the most vile characters out there, you have to find some place of connectivity, something relatable within them that you can connect to personally. And I'd say more often than not, we can't help but relate to those emotional beats of the character, even though we may not agree with them morally or the path they go. those emotions we as actors tap into and still put ourselves in that position to feel those raw. And so I'd say it's more of a question of how not to. There's rarely a character that I perform in the booth that has a tearful emotional breakdown that I myself was not crying by the end of the session. I'm also a big softie, and she can attest to that. Yeah, I know. I cry at everything.
It's okay. I'd rather that than you be like a rageaholic or something like
There
that.
you go.
So it's fine.
You're better at that. You're the fighter.
Yeah,
It works
it's
out
true.
well. But yeah, I think.
There's actually an acting exercise. Oh, go ahead.
No, continue what you're saying.
Yeah, there's an acting exercise that's fairly common that I enjoy, where you can make a T list and have on one side all the things that you relate to your character with, and on the other side, how all the ways that they're completely different. And as an acting teacher once told me, all the things that you do have in all the things that you do have in common with that character, awesome. You don't have to act. Good. Just pull that from your life, which is also why generally the older we get, the better actors you are. So it's just more life experience to pull from. But all the stuff that you can't relate to, then that's when the acting comes in. So yeah, you're gonna find something to relate to in every character, even like you said, even the most vile, horrible, despicable ones.
Yeah, you need a shower after those sessions sometimes. But yeah, like as far as getting too into it, yeah, like there have been a number of projects I've worked on where there have been very tearful, emotional moments, and it's a full flush face of Matt crying. Makes it hard when they get to take two, and you're like, hold on, I need a second.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And both of you have quite a resume, from writing to directing. Now, what project was your favorite in the line of which one you did and which one do you prefer?
As far as writing and directing is concerned.
I mean, Batgirl Spoiled definitely holds a very special place in my heart, which is our Batgirl fan series that we did. We ended up getting shut down by Warner Brothers. We got a cease and desist, which in Los Angeles we call a compliment. But it was really great just getting to know that character and being the writer and wanting to bring such a strong female character onto the screen and especially in DC, for some reason, they don't like putting their women on screen. I don't know why. So we thought we would do that. And it was great because I trained for about a year before we actually even filmed to be able to do as much and as many of my own stunts and fighting as I can, because they wanted just that much more realism. So, and it was great, and it was awesome. And also budget. We can't afford stunt actor. So you do it, was kind of the way it was. But yeah, it was amazing. And they're your babies. Those projects are your babies.
Yeah. I think for me, back in 2009, I directed and performed in a web series called There Will Be Brawl, which was a kind of a live-action film noir HBO crime drama version of the Smash Brothers Nintendo universe. And the comedy wasn't the fact that it took itself so seriously, but it was a show that we had no money on, and it was really my first big directing project. But I've never felt a stronger sense of community coming together to make something out of passion, because we had no money to pay anybody, and it was long hours. At nights during weeknights, people had to go to work in the morning after the sun rose when we finished shooting, and copious amounts of prosthetics used for multiple characters and silly costumes, and like that was a whole 9-month period of time getting what was essentially came down to almost 3.5 hours of content that we released in 1 year on that web series. And everyone was gung-ho the entire time, even through the difficulty. And some of my closest friends to this day I met through that project. And it's going to be hard-pressed for any project to ever be filled with so much positivity down the rest of my life in comparison to that one. So it holds a very dear place in my heart.
Now, both of you are big gamer types.
You could say that.
Yeah. New web series, let's say, yeah. Now, what is your best accomplishment that you hold dear while holding a game controller?
Ooh.
Just the looks on your faces is priceless right now.
It's a good question.
I beat a really crappy PlayStation RPG called Beyond the Beyond out of spite, because I was not going to let that game defeat me. That was an accomplishment, kind of.
I'm going to say dodging 100 lightning bolts to get the ultimate, like Aaron's ultimate weapon? No.
In Final Fantasy
in
X.
Final Fantasy X.
Yeah, in the
And you
field
have
there.
to in the Thunder Plains, and you have to 100 in a row dodge lightning
That was
bolts. I
pretty
did
awful.
that. I did it. I did that. A lot. I don't even want to know. I don't even want to think
I
about
saw
it.
someone on YouTube actually made like a robot to do that.
Oh,
They
yeah, yeah, yeah,
constructed
that's
a
right.
a robot arm to
to just
time
dodge.
perfectly the dodging on its own. And I was like, see,
That's where it's at.
that's all right.
Yeah, that's
That-
smart.
That's gonna be my esports team. It's just a bunch of robot arms. It's
Yeah.
gonna be great. Yeah.
Now, being gamers, I have to ask this one. Cheat sheet or no cheat sheet?
Cheat sheet.
Cheat sheet and
Like cheat codes or like games, like walkthroughs or something like that.
on a second playthrough, yeah.
Cheat sheet.
First playthrough, no. Second playthrough, definitely. I have an obsession with collecting everything in an RPG, and so I will just spend hours scouring every corner and every edge. And God, nowadays a lot of games are a little too, I don't say easy, but like, you know, the tutorials, the maps will point you directly to everything, which is great for that type. I need to collect everything, but there was something about older titles where there were some walls that you would not be able to tell it was a secret wall unless you walked up and just clicked the X button on it for no reason.
Yeah.
But in that same regard, I guess kind of in a half answer to your last question too, as part of that collection thing, Final Fantasy VII, the first playthrough, I spent well over the 100-hour allotment because it says stop it at 99 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds.
Right.
To like max out every party member, max out all, I get 3 separate sets of master materia for my main party, and all the rest of like magic and tack up materia to fill all
Yeah.
the slots.
You have to have like 5 ribbons
Yeah.
for your whole party.
But there were certain items that you only got as that you had one opportunity to get as you play through, and when I found out that you couldn't get them again after I'd beaten the game, of course I had to play through a second time with the guide, get everything, and then max everything out again because I have a problem.
Yeah, I'm one of the old schoolers of Legend of Dragoon, no walkthrough.
Legend of Dragoon, such a good game that should have not come out so close to Final Fantasy VII because it was just doomed by the comparison.
It was, and there was no walkthrough, and you did not know how to beat the last guy.
Yeah.
And
Did you have any more questions?
Well, it's just a kind of a little play off of it's with the video games.
Yeah.
You think you'll ever play Five Nights at Freddy again?
I would love to. I want to, because that was not fair. That door jam at the wrong, that's not fair. That's cheap. That's cheap, Five Nights at Freddy's. So yeah.
Especially when you have a whole comic costume.
We
Yeah,
have
I
a
know.
date. Me and Five Nights at Freddy's have a date.
I have it on Steam. I own it.
Really?
Yeah, the first one. There's
Oh.
80,000 of them now, so you'll catch
Oh.
up on them.
Yeah. I'll be back.
What works in that game on a deeply primal level is that little part of your brain when you were a child that just wondered why you chose Chuck E. Cheese for your birthday party.
Yeah.
You get there and you arrive and your friends are showing up and there's pizza at your table and there's music and games and there's still that party that goes, this was a poor choice.
This is weird.
Why did I do this? And that's what that game is based on, and it does it so well.
last question.
Yes.
Somebody, or was there anybody that not so much was a big part of your life, but inspired you, whether living or dead, to where you are what you are now?
So many. It's hard.
I mean, I remember when I was in 4th grade, we were supposed to do a book report, like a biography on someone who was important to history. And of course, the kids didn't want to do that, so the teacher passed out a list of people you could pick. And it's all, past presidents. And everyone's like, I'll do Lincoln, because that's the thing you do reports on. And they would pick that. I chose Mel Blanc, because I grew up watching cartoons, and my dad, who also raised me on Monty Python and Warner Brothers and Tex Avery, kept telling me about this one man who did all these amazing voices that I grew up on. So I decided to do the book report on him, and then reading about his life and his start in radio as a Foley artist, and how he just became this incredible essentially a demigod of creative output that I found myself enthralled by the idea, and that was a large inspiration to me later in my life to even pursue this career path. So I'd say he definitely has had a very large influence in my life, and many people I've had the opportunity to work with him say the same.
Yeah, he's kind of like a voiceover god at this point.
Yeah.
That man, he's amazing.
Don't piss him off.
I know, right? In terms of people who I deeply admire and look up to, topically, I think people like John Oliver and Jon Stewart and Colbert and Tina Fey. I love Tina Fey so much. People who are social commentators who aren't afraid to speak the truth and generally use comedy as the delivery method. I'm all about that. I love South Park for that reason. Matt and Trey are huge inspirations of mine as well, just because they are not afraid. They're not afraid, and I think that's an amazingly beautiful thing.
We need it culturally right now more than ever.
Mm-hmm. And this is going to be a weird one. When I was younger and just getting like fresh-faced in Los Angeles and just started, getting the ball rolling, I really admired Vin Diesel and what he did, because his story is awesome. And he was one of those people where he came out to LA, tried it, failed, had to go home, recoup, tried it again, failed, had to go home, recoup, and then he wrote and directed and produced and starred in his own short film. That went to Sundance. That got him noticed by Steven Spielberg, and then he was in Saving Private Ryan. And I'm like, yes, because he essentially, and honestly, we almost kind of have a weird similar path. Like I said, and part of it is because I heard his story and followed in his footsteps.
Next to Sundance and Spielberg.
Yeah. But yeah, we kind of have a similar path that he took, just because same thing. I was in Los Angeles for like a year and a half, 2 years, and was exhausted and over the audition game for crappy roles, where I was in a room with 30 other girls who looked just like me, and they're probably not going to get cast. I was like, this is dumb. This is so dumb. I'm just going to start making my own stuff. And then as soon as I started making my own stuff, it just shows people that you really are serious and that you are dedicated. And fuck it, if the work's not there, I'll just make it. And it worked. And then as soon as people see that, then they're like, oh, we take you seriously now. And it's like, yeah.
And tried to cast people for Rocky, and they said, no, you're going to do it. You wrote it.
Right.
And guess what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's got 6 more coming out. So.
Right.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah.
Vin Diesel, also one of my favorite D&D nerds.
Yeah,
Love
he's
that
a D&D
man.
nerd as well.
You should come on our show sometime, Ben, if you're watching, which you're not, but if you ever do, you should come on Critical Role.
We want you.
Awesome.
We want you on Critical Role, Ben. Yes. But yeah, there's some kind of a weird pull. I said a lot of people
like it.
just now. But yeah,